Hello and welcome, Angelinos. We thank you for tuning in to yet another brilliant episode of the Galaxy Guy podcast, hosted by Chris Maldonado, a show made by loyal Galaxy fans for loyal Galaxy fans who bleed blue, white and gold. So join us.
Hola y bienvenidos Angelinos. Welcome back Galaxy fans to the Galaxy Guy show. Como siempre, I'm your host Chris Maldonado and we are coming to you tonight, Easter Sunday. He has risen. We're coming through your screens and speakers and we are excited as usual to talk about our favorite club. You all know, the one and only, the LA Galaxy. And you all know the drill. We have a great post-game recap for you. We will, of course, be talking about the LA Galaxy's 0-0 draw on the road versus the Chicago Fire in Chicago. Very cold, windy night. The guys were definitely feeling it. Saw the fans out there, all the snow gear. Even though it was a 0-0 scoreless game, it wasn't without some excitement, some controversy. Wouldn't be a Galaxy game without some controversy. Controversy for both teams, but mostly the Galaxy. So on the show tonight, we've got you covered as usual with our honest, unbiased takes on everything we saw from the LA Galaxy this past Saturday up in Chicago. We'll be breaking down the stats. We'll provide the analysis, as well as talk about the good and the bad of the game. So now, as usual, to talk about all of that tonight, Easter Sunday, we've got the usuals, my co-hosts, Matt and Casey. Casey, I'll start with you, dude, because I see you wearing the bunny ears. You're in the spirit of the holiday. You've been missed on the show. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Happy Easter. I watched the first half of the Jimmy Savile documentary this week on Netflix, which I don't know if you guys know the story about that, but it's pretty gruesome. But funnily enough, that wasn't the worst 90 minutes of my week. Obviously, we're coming off a bad 0-0 draw against the Chicago, but we'll get to my points later.
Awesome, man. Great. Back. It's good to have you back. I'm looking forward to seeing that documentary and cringing the whole way through, because I have heard of who he is and what he did. I heard it's a pretty good documentary exposing some of those crimes. So crime documentaries on Netflix, right?
Oh, yes.
No, but that's good, man. I'm glad to have you on. And also with us, you all know him, the one and only Mr. Matt Granger. How are you doing this week, Matt? How's the hamstring, dude?
Ooh, it's tight and it's very much in pain. Yeah, if people don't know, me and Chris, we play soccer every Friday, and the hamstring went this week. It was the calf the week before and the knee the week before that. So we got a whole bunch of friends and a whole bunch of ice to go on. And as always, man. Happy Easter to everybody. Ramadan, Good Friday to the Jews, and I guess the atheists get it every day. So for you guys.
Oh, no, that's great, man. Alex, for all of those who follow us on the Galaxy Family Discord server, you'll know that Matt and I occasionally play soccer Fridays. We play with some friends. It's been a constant struggle, right, Matt? Because our brains keep telling us to go harder. And we talk about this every week. Our brains say go, go, go. And then our legs are just telling us like, dude, you're too old for this. Stop. Like you just can't, right? So, but it's been good. It's good exercise playing soccer on turf. It does require some adjustment, right? Like the first couple times on turf. But after a while, your body does get accustomed to it. You do adjust your stride to, the bounciness of the turf. So I feel like I'm getting used to it. So we'll see. Give it a couple more months. Hopefully I'll get my MLS contract. But that's good, man. It's good having you guys on. It is a great spring evening. I can't say the same for Chicago. It was a cold game up there. But listen, we're going to get started. It's a bit of a condensed show for all of you tonight, so we're going to hop right into it. First, let's talk about the build-up to this game this past Saturday. The Galaxy was coming, I don't know if you guys would agree with me on this, but they were coming on a bit of a high, right? They had just beat Portland on the road. It was a pretty convincing win. And then they beat LAFC at home, that's always a big morale boost for the team, right? When they win a rivalry as big as our rivalry against LAFC. So coming off a bit of a high, The Chicago Fire is a very interesting team. They aren't exactly a very strong team offensively. I believe they've only scored 5 goals all season, which isn't really a lot. And they've only conceded two goals all season, which is they defensively, they're the best defensive team in MLS because no one else has conceded less. Going into this game, I'll ask you first, Casey. What were your expectations for this game, LA Galaxy versus Chicago in Chicago?
Yeah, as you said, Chris, Chicago hasn't been very offensively potent so far this season. They're kind of a boring team tactically. This kind of seemed like it was going to be an easy win for us, considering, like you said, the high on the win in El Tráfico. But as we saw, it proved to be a little bit more difficult than what we had originally anticipated as fans. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that Chicago is, I don't want to say they're a really good defensive team, but you can't deny 2 goals all season. It's very reflective of how much they've improved defensively. I'm not surprised because, as you guys will know, their head coach is former Galaxy player Ezra Hendrickson, who was a phenomenal MLS defender, right? So, and it was great to see that. It's amazing the storylines that sometimes develop in MLS when you have 2 teammates, originals like Greg Vanney and Ezra Hendrickson facing off against each other. Both of them defenders. It's great to see that. Matt, I'll ask you the same question. Going into this game this past Saturday, LA Galaxy versus Chicago in Chicago, what were your thoughts? Where did you see the Galaxy kind of finishing this game?
So I think I put it in the Discord and then also on Reddit as well that I kind of felt like, I had seen a couple of Chicago games and their defense is very much for real. So I kind of felt like the default here would have been a 0-0 draw. And that, I think the hope was that we would sneak out with 1 goal and then off of like a rebound or something. Evidently that didn't happen. I thought there was a good opportunity for Vanney to maybe work in Joveljic and Chicha together because they were going to be a stout defense. So you would want multiple offensive options up front in case you were found in a position where you needed to volley the ball in and start throwing Hail Marys. Obviously that's not what Greg Vanney did. And I think our offensive output kind of reflected that. I'm not sure how I got disappointed even when I thought it was going to be 0-0 and it ended up 0-0, but it happened. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I guess a first for everything.
Mastradamus strikes again.
Mastradamus strikes. And, this is a little bit of a nod to all of our friends over on the Galaxy Family Discord. We joke about this a lot, right? But listen, we ended the game 0-0. Nobody scored, but you know what? At least we finished number 1 in the stat that matters most. Possession. At least it matters most to Greg Vanney, apparently. But, there's always that, right? The silver lining.
Yep.
Now, I have to say, going into this game, I expected a road draw. I expected a point from this game, which I think, given that Chicago is so good defensively this year, that's probably the best we could have hoped for, right? Especially since the weather wasn't in our favor. Listen, the guys have been dealing with a little bit of a bipolar weather here in Los Angeles, right? It's been kind of breezy some days, hot couple days, but for the most part, it's consistent weather, right? You go to Chicago when you have that much wind chill and you have such an icy temperature. It's hard to play. Like you get it. It's a different type of exhaustion that you get from being really cold, right? Because your body's working overtime to keep you warm. You get tired a lot faster than you expect, and it's harder to breathe. Your lungs are cold. It's weird. So I'm not surprised that the guys didn't perform optimally, but you know what? I'll take it. I'll take that road point. And it doesn't feel great, but it feels all right. It's a point on the road. It feels all right. So I'll take it. But listen, let's now get into the section of the show where we talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff. Naturally, we have to start with the good stuff. So I'm going to kick that off to Matt, because I know Matt has his notes for all the good that we saw in this game. Matt, why don't you get us started there, brother?
So I think in terms of the good stuff from the game, one is obviously the road draw, right? When you go on the road, you want to get a result, especially in a place where the weather is a little bit more difficult, like Chicago,
Of course.
and then also against one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in MLS. But the good part for me really is the blossoming relationship between Sega, Koulibaly, and Derek Williams, right?
Yes.
I want to say going all the way back to next year, something has gone wrong where these guys could just not get on the field at the same time, whether it be injuries or, Derek Williams trying to murder Andy Polo or Sega Koulibaly just like outright sucking.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see them both actually kind of in form at the same time. Obviously, the first game with LAFC went pretty well, but then the game against Chicago also went very well. You're seeing a lot of composure and a lot of chemistry start to build.
And this is the pairing that Greg Vanney wants. This is the pairing that he wants.
Exactly. This is what he intended. So at least it's good to see that our resources that we've donated, the international spots, are actually kind of paying off a bit. In addition to that, our outside backs had a great game too. I think Who Scored has, Edwards at the highest rated player and the man of the match for the match. And then it was the first time we had seen Julian, get above 6 on his rating. He was actually a 7. So the back four is actually, looking really nice. And Sega and Derek Williams together this season haven't been scored on. When LAFC scored, that was after Derek Williams came out. So we'll see how much longer their cumulative clean sheets can occur. But I guess my big bonus and good for is going to be the clean sheets. We continue to show a defensive improvement and prowess, and hopefully that continues because it establishes a good base for us. If we can hold opponents to 1 goal a game and get multiple clean sheets, then really we're just got to get our offense on board, which is a little bit of its own problem. But yeah, that's my good, is the improvement in defense. It's worlds better than it was last year, even if people don't necessarily trust it yet.
Absolutely.
And to that point, Matt, you bringing up the synergy between Koulibaly and Derek Williams, they're really the two ideal types of center backs you would want to have in any situation. You have Koulibaly, who's so good on the ball and so comfortable on the ball, can pivot out to either side and can get balls out of the back very effectively. And you have Williams, who's a very stern and hard defender. Who's
no nonsense.
Yeah, no nonsense. Who's like your true sweeper in a way. Guy who's going to hang back on, their 9 usually, or whoever they have up top, and win those balls in the key areas of the final third of our final third. So, and again, we're spoiled with the effective wingers that we have in Raheem Edwards and Julian Araujo. I mean, I think many Galaxy fans could agree with me in that Raheem Edwards certainly deserves a better contract in seasons to come. I mean, he's one of the lowest paid players on the roster and has proven time and time again in the short time we've had this season that he deserves to be a starting winger on this team.
Absolutely. We can't talk about Raheem Edwards enough, right? I mean, I think in total duels, he had the most on the team, and he had the most duels won. This is a guy that loves to have the ball. He loves to fight for the ball. And we've talked about it. I've talked about it time and time again on this show. To me, it's almost like skill is almost secondary with players. And I know that's controversial to say, right? But what I love to see in players, especially Galaxy players, is I love to see drive. I like to see commitment, and I like to see hustle. And I see all of that from Raheem Edwards. And it also doesn't hurt that the guy has the skill to go along with that, right? He is an athlete. That guy is an athlete. It just blows my mind, the stuff that he's able to do on the field. Like, he'll fight for a ball and he's scrappy. He'll, shoulder a guy and he'll stretch his legs out. He'll get his toe to the ball. He'll somehow get it. He's getting in there. He's winning those duels. And he's been very good going forward offensively. So maybe that's a big part of why our defense is working so much better now, and it sucks to say, but Jorge Villafaña is going to find himself on the bench, I think, for the majority of this season. Yeah. Unless Raheem Edwards gets injured, we might see Jorge Villafaña for some U.S. Open Cup competition, perhaps, or some of the friendlies that are coming up. But I'm very pleased with Raheem Edwards so far. Now, Casey, is there anything else to add on to the good stuff that we saw this Saturday?
No, again, I think, we're really spoiled with our wing backs. They're probably two of the best wing backs in the league. And like you said, Raheem Edwards' athleticism is untouched and unrivaled in most situations. And he gets his nose, in there. He'll get physical with the rest of them, and he can out dribble a lot of players in this league.
Yeah. Looking at the stats for Raheem Edwards, he actually had the most duels won in combination to all the other defenders combined. So pretty amazing stat. Now, it was a 0-0 draw. There was a very interesting stat that you pointed out earlier, Casey, which was, what was that 0-0 draw? What does that mean for the LA Galaxy?
Well, interestingly enough, this is our first donuts draw 0-0 in more than a year and a half. Our last 0-0 draw was on the road in September of 2020 against San Jose on September 13th.
Christ.
Where I think Ibra was still on the team then. We were playing Matthias Almeida side that really wasn't much to praise about, and again looked like a game that was easily in our favor to win.
Yeah.
But we walked away with donuts. So it's, first 0-0 draw since September of 2020.
And it's crazy because this is also a Galaxy team that, I mean, we were talking about it just a couple of weeks ago. For a couple of years now, this is a Galaxy team that almost refuses to draw. It's all or nothing with this team. It's either we win or we get blown up, right? So sometimes these road points, they're not extremely satisfactory, but they're necessary, right? Because it's MLS, it's a very long season. Some of these road trips are very long distance. Sometimes, you know what? The best you can hope for is a draw, and a point helps at the end of the day, right? When the season ends, every single point matters. So, all right, so we got that covered. Let's now talk about the bad stuff. All the bad stuff that we saw from the LA Galaxy this past Saturday. Casey, I know you have your notes. Why don't you go ahead and hit us with those?
Yeah, again, being the first 0-0 draw since 2020, it was a pretty disappointing performance in a lot of aspects. We were tactically outclassed. I'll go ahead and say that in a lot of areas. Chicago were playing 3 up most of the time, putting immense pressure on our center backs. And as a result, space in the middle was at a premium, and most of the passing lanes were shut down really quickly because of effective pressure from Chicago. And long balls were really our only option playing out of the back. You saw it a lot of times where there was pressure on Koulibaly when he was in possession of the ball in our third, and he would have to play it forward, just punt it forward to the wing or wherever he could up top. And the only way we were really able to carry possession upfield was through the wings, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
We're so spoiled with our wing backs in Raheem Edwards and Julian Araujo, and they carried most of the offensive load, bringing the balls forward. Quick passing combinations through the middle was probably the key in breaking Chicago down, but we were taken out of rhythm. That was evident through the buildup of Costa's goal that was ultimately called offside. It was a really just quick passing combination that found him, through the lines, and those kinds of passes just weren't happening in the game yesterday. And the physicality of, sorry, go ahead.
Could part of, since you're talking about that, could part of the reason be the way our midfield was structured for this game? It was kind of weird, right? Because I feel like I think Mark individually had a good game. Leardom individually had a good game. I think Ryan lacked a lot, but there didn't seem to be a lot of cohesion there between the three of them, right? Especially Ryan being further up the field. What were your takes on that? Matt, Casey, I'd love to hear.
I think a lot of it had to do with the pressure, as well as the physicality of Chicago. I mean, we were just getting bodied off the ball numerous times in possession. It made it really hard for us to find a rhythm in the midfield. And like you said, the passing rates weren't bad yesterday, but none of them were really clicking in key areas. We needed to find more line breaking passes, like in the buildup of Costa's goal that was called offside, but nothing was clicking.
Yeah. Matt, what was your take on that midfield for the LA Galaxy?
Well, I think if you're setting up that midfield with the intent to go 0-0, then you probably accomplished your goal, right? Because you have essentially like 3 holding or defensive mids, in the middle, and all three of them are very good in their own individual ways. Like
Yeah.
Ryan's a great athlete. He's strong. He's physical. He can leap. Leardom brings a lot of veteran presence to him. He's very smart. A lot of times you don't even notice what he's doing because
I've been impressed with Leardom.
Yeah, and then Marky Delgado does all like the busy work, right? He has a lot. I think in this game he had a lot of interceptions and tackles, like he always does.
Yeah.
I think the part of the problem is that there's just not enough time between the three of them, right? Like Ryan spent all of last year playing with Jonah and Leggett and whatever makeshift midfield we had, and then this year he starts off with Marky. Marky goes down, and then all of a sudden Leardom, who was only playing right back on the team, is now playing midfield with him, and they do fine. But the three of them haven't played together. Marky hasn't played with Leardom. It's just led to a lot of confusion.
Right.
But as a default, it was very defensive and fine. I just don't know that any of them really knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing or what the other person wanted to do. A lot of times the longer you play with someone, whether it's in practice, in club, or even in pickup, you start to learn other people's moves. Yep. And that's just not something you can do in a week. And it's not something you can do in a week successfully against the best defense in the league. So I don't really hold any of them too accountable on like their performance. I think they did well. We didn't lose. Mm-hmm. But if this is what we're going to do going forward, he needs to commit to it because they need to learn each other. And if it's not, and this was just a one-off, then let's just write it off as a one-off.
It's very interesting for sure to see that. Victor Vasquez didn't travel with the team. So, as we know, he's usually the guy that fits into that number 10 spot, right? As the cam or Efren Alvarez. So it was very interesting to see that. I think Leardom impressed Greg enough during that LAFC game to earn himself another chance in the starting lineup this week. So, like I said, been kind of impressed with what he's done out there so far. I knew of Leardom from when he was with Seattle, and I thought he was pretty decent back then. So I'm glad to have him on the team. It's a good addition, right? And he's versatile. He could play defense or the midfield. So, Casey, please continue.
And to that, point, Matt, it is hard to play with the sense of urgency that we were under in the game like yesterday when, you don't have that sort of synergy in the midfield. You're not able to get those quick passing combinations off and things like that. And again, we were just physically dominated throughout most of the match. And ultimately we played into Chicago's hands towards the end. Lots of fouls called against the Galaxy in the last 20 minutes of the game. That could have also been, some tired legs, as you were saying, Chris. Playing in that different sort of climate definitely takes its toll on any kind of player. And we were goaded into pressing our back line a little bit higher, which nearly resulted in a goal for Chicago. Sega Koulibaly came up and pressed the ball when he really shouldn't have. He should have kept pressure and, marking Kasper Pershabilko. And luckily Bond was able to stop it at the last second there. And
man, that was
this set pieces.
I swore that was a goal, dude. I swore that was a goal. I was like, that's a goal. Great.
Yeah. And set pieces, I don't know, just I haven't been very impressed with our set piece play very much this season. A lot of it is more of your run-of-the-mill Greg Vanney short corners and overly complicated setups and things like that, where we just kind of need to keep things simple.
We've been struggling with that for years. I mean, we had how many goals were scored by set pieces last season, right?
Very few. Yeah.
Very, very few. I mean, I think at one point we had almost no, we went most of the season without scoring a single goal from a set piece. It was crazy. Like our corners get wasted all the time. Anyway, just ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really most of my bad. Like we were talking about earlier, it's, a lot of the travel, a lot of the climate and things like that definitely take their toll. But, there were a lot of areas where I think we were just tactically edged out by Chicago and Ezra Hendrickson.
Yeah. Matt, anything to add on to the bad stuff?
I guess just one thing Casey didn't mention, I'm sure everyone noticed, was there was just no shots on goal, right? Like that's such a low standard to hit.
Zero shots
to shoot the ball at the goal. Like come on, man.
Zero shots on target from Chicago and the Galaxy.
I mean, even in AYSO, you'll accidentally kick at the ball at the goalie. But I think the frustrating part and why I'm not as forgiving on it, and it's not fine, even if the result is good, is that it highlights a big issue for us, right? And I think last year I brought up with the midfield, like, these little issues in the beginning of the season, they're small, they're leaks, right? But they'll sink your boat by the end of the season. And the big issue here is that we only have one goal scoring threat, and it's Chicharito.
That's right.
So like if you get an organized defensive team like Chicago, they can shut you down with like a very simple, basic game plan as long as they remain disciplined. And I think that's part of the problem is the no shots on goal. And next week we play Nashville. Nashville has the best center back on the U.S. Olympic team in Walker Zimmerman, and they've had very good defense the last couple of weeks. I could easily see that there's multiple teams in the MLS who will likely hold us to 0, just knowing that we only have Chicharito who can score. Some of that is going to fall on Greg Vanney. Some of that is just roster construction, but it's something that needs to change. And the other thing that kind of didn't really hit me very well was in the press conference, Greg Vanney mentioned that like, oh, well,
yep.
Yeah. So it didn't take very long. You guys can stop your timers now. We have blamed the grass. we didn't play well. I know last year was the thing, right? Oh, the grass was too long. There was humidity. There's higher elevations. So the ball floats differently. That's why we're not allowed to score in Utah. Right. But yeah, you can stop the timer now. The reason why we didn't shoot any balls on goal was because the grass was too long. So,
oh God,
I think those just excuses like that are just so ridiculous. They're very inept, and they're very typical of a Galaxy that settles for mediocrity, right? And also it like the media and the fans that like willingly believe those type of excuses are a reason why you shouldn't play up to par. Like we have kids who play on on dirt fields with rocks trying to get noticed. Don't complain about why they can't shoot the ball at the goal. Paris, like PSG, is playing in the snow. They don't complain. People in England are playing in torrential rain. They don't complain.
Right.
Nowhere in any other big club around the world do they use something like as dumb as like grass length as a reason why they weren't able to be effective offensively. Like it's just the weakest excuse you can have. And in all honesty, like, it's a weak excuse when if we had won this game 2-0 or 3-0, like Greg wouldn't have brought up grass length, right? No, he wouldn't have. Like that's like just what I can't stand.
Yeah.
Anyways, that went a little off the rails there, but I just know, like, factually, it's going to get pushed this week that grass length was a thing, and it's just so soft. It's just so incredibly soft, and it's not
about as
on to
soft.
Things like that will not return us to glory. It just won't.
About as soft as Kevin Cabral, which is. We saw him on the bench. He's not a starter this week, right? He wasn't a starter last week for LAFC either. Is this going to be the new normal? Cabral coming off the bench. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things where Sam, the Bulldog Grandsir, just played him off the field. Right? Like he was just more effective than he was.
More hustle,
more effort, more defense, more results. He had 3 assists, and he has 3 assists in the last 3 starts he's had. And versus Cabral, who, like, you see him on the field, he's only coming on for 30 minutes. You can't beg that guy to chase a ball.
Dude,
it's just very frustrating.
So frustrating.
And the thing is, like, I understand he's Greg's guy, but obviously the fan discontent has gone loud enough where he feels like maybe it's time for me to start distancing myself from this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to fix that guy. Cabral he's afraid of contact. He's afraid of effort. It just is what it is. We're just holding a bag on that guy. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, next year he becomes a senior DP. We'll have to figure out, what we're going to do with him.
Yeah. That's my ugly take for the game. And I think we'll probably end it with our ugly takes, but listen, like Matt was saying earlier, we cannot finish this season, and we can't expect to end up in the playoffs comfortably, and we can't expect to make an MLS Cup run if we only have one offensive threat, if that's Chicharito. If we've seen it time and time again in MLS, MLS Cup winners, right? For the most part, it's all the DPs firing on all cylinders, right? And they're all contributing. We saw it with, granted, New England wasn't an MLS Cup winner last season, but they broke a bunch of records, right? All of their DPs were just crazy numbers, right? Just scoring goals, assisting each other. That's what we need with the LA Galaxy. Chicharito can't do it alone, right? There's going to be a point where eventually Chicharito is going to reach that point where, halfway through the season, he's just exhausted, and he's maybe going to have a couple games where he's not going to play to his maximum. Maybe he might face some injuries. We're going to have to find those goals somewhere, right? You can't win a soccer game without scoring goals. That's just fact, right? So we're going to have to see. I don't know. Cabral, Costa, are they going to step up? Is Dijon going to get more than 2 minutes on the field? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. So next week.
You heard it here first. Chicha looked tired after 70 minutes in the last 2 games. The fatigue's already setting in. That's just how it goes. That is just science. Don't take it from us. This is how the body works, right? It's anatomy. But next week we have Nashville, right? Just a quick little overview of what to expect from Nashville. Matt, I know you had some keynotes there for the Nashville game next week. What do we expect to see from them? So if you look at Nashville on face value, they seem like a very average team, right? Like perfectly middle of the road. I think 8 goals for, 8 goals against. But I think when you lift the hood a little bit, it's a little bit, we might be a little bit susceptible to them. So if you look at Nashville, the way they're constructed, they're very strong in the air. They have Romney, they have Zimmerman, and they have CJ Sapong, all of who win almost all of their aerial duels. Big, strong guys who are not afraid to get physical. And if you look at our weaknesses, we're weak on set pieces, right?
Yeah.
So that's not good news.
That's not good. Dave Romney, please don't.
Yeah, please don't. Beautiful please Dave. Don't. And then if you look at the people who make plays for them, Mukhtar and Liel, right? Two very, very, very adept passers. They like to pass through the lines, and Mukhtar can definitely hit a set piece. Again, another thing that we're very weak at. And if you look at their way their games have gone this season, they've scored in every single game except for one. So, if the trend continues, I expect them to at least get 1 goal against them. I think the tricky part is going to be who's going to score first, right? So against Orlando, I expect them to follow a very similar strategy that Orlando followed. And if we don't score first, I think we're going to be in trouble. If they score first, which is possible and likely, honestly, because I feel like their goal is more certain than our goal. Into this game, they're going to park the bus, and then we're going to see a very similar end to the way we played against Orlando and the way we played against Chicago, because everyone knows what we're going to do. So I think
very
it's
predictable
scenarios. Yeah, I think it's just one of those scenarios in which we have a very average team that just happens to be strong in our Achilles heel. That's the way I construct Nashville. It'll be fun to see.
Trap game.
Oh yeah, 100%. Absolutely 100%. A trap game.
Yeah,
absolutely a trap game. Yeah, 1,000%.
Just because, like you were saying, looking at Nashville at face value, they're a middle of the table team, and they are just the textbook definition of average. We were talking about this before we hit record. 8 goals scored, 8 goals conceded, and they're like two. I think it's 2 or 3 wins, and then 2 draws and 2 losses. So they're just average. But like the way Matt is describing it right now, their strengths are our weaknesses. So I could very well see this going both ways. I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of uncertainty in our lineup, right? Like, I think the rumor out there is that Victor Vasquez has a hamstring strain.
Yeah,
he's one of our oldest players. Does he come back? Sasha, who was in health and safety, not COVID, has been very slow the last 2 games and looked winded almost immediately. Do we go back with the midfield that we had this lineup and play for a draw? I don't know. And then when we bring in Efra, that's the other thing. Vanny's subs have really sucked. Like really, really sucked lately. When we bring in Efra, do we bring him in for the middle or do we bring him in for the wing, which is not his natural position?
Right.
I want to say that, the Galaxy are doing well. I don't want to say they're not doing well, but going into this next week, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot brewing underneath the surface that I think fans need to kind of watch out for.
Yeah.
This will be a very telling, very, very, very telling game of where this team's at, because everyone kind of saw how Chicago handled us, and Nashville is very capable of doing the same thing.
Right on. So very quickly before we end the show, I'm going to ask you guys, and we'll start with Casey. What's the outcome for this game?
I say, like Matt brought up, they've got the offensive potency in Nashville, and we've got some leaks at the back. So I'm thinking maybe this goes 2-1 Nashville.
2-1 Nashville. All right, there we go. Matt, very quickly, how does this game end?
I think 2-0 Nashville.
2-0 Nashville.
Yeah, I think they're gonna score one right away, park the bus, and then I think they'll get one at the end when we're chasing.
Damn, dude, I hope you're wrong. I hope the Galaxy at least wins 1-0.
I want them to win.
But all righty, folks, you heard it here. We're looking forward to that game next weekend, Nashville. I'll be there at the stadium. I'll see you guys there, hopefully. But I think that's it. We wrap it up. From myself, Chris Maldonado, my amazing co-host, Matt Granger, Casey Kegel, we are happy that you guys joined us. Have a good week. Goodbye.